So, Steve, you do know these things, and it is one data point, but encouraging.
Yeah, it's actually two data points, both the prices and the unemployment numbers. Yeah, they're encouraging sense of positive economic growth. They obviously would lean the other way with respect to the Fed. And so this is the conundrum and the tension that's going on right now.
What's your take? I mean, at this point, when you see these numbers, how closely do you follow them? And for you and the way you invest, does it matter when we're going to get a hike?
Well, I follow them quite closely because they do inform us as to lots of other things. Personally, I don't think the Fed should be raising rates anytime in the foreseeable future. I don't see the case for it particularly. But in terms of the kind of for an equity investor and the kinds of long-term investing we do, no, whether the Fed raises in October, December, or January isn't going to change our lives.
All right, I want to turn to D.C., where our colleague Gina Smilik from Bloomberg Economics and a Federal Reserve reporter is joining us. What do you make here?
You know, I think that the really important number out this morning is that inflation point. It's the last major inflation point that we're going to get before the Fed meets in October. And at this point in time, as the Fed looks to see if its dual mandate is satisfied, they're feeling pretty good about the employment side. So I think it's those price pressures that they're really still waiting to see pick up toward their 2% goal.
Yeah, and wage growth, of course, right? We keep looking for wage growth, which we haven't been able to see, despite the fact that people are saying we're close to full employment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the wage growth and the inflation numbers are to some degree related. You know, it's really debated how much wage growth leads inflation or vice versa. But I think that if they saw either wage pressures or a little bit of inflation, it'd make them feel a lot better that their goals can be satisfied.
Thank you very much, Gina. So, go ahead.
Steve, you want to weigh in?
Well, I agree with that. I think wage pressure is probably the key indicator. We need some increased wages. Wages haven't risen after you adjust for inflation in quite a long time. So those of us who think wage pressure would actually be a good thing, but that will be the thing that probably gets the Fed to move when it occurs.
But if you look at the futures, I looked at them this morning, I think, actually, you have to get it out to April before you get about 50% likelihood of a raise.
And that's a very recent development, as you know.
Yes, exactly.
Go back
moving.
just a week or two. I think people were taking Yellen at her word that it was going to happen this year, and then you had Lael Brainerd and Tarullo coming out on the other side. But you also had on your show people like Barry Sternlicht, who's a very sort of centrist, balanced guy, saying, let's just get it over with, raise rates, and let's just get on with it. So it's going to be a really interesting discussion. It'll be fun to be a fly on the wall.
What does it mean to Janet Yellen and her position that there are so many other Fed governors out there so publicly on the other side?
Well, there are two so far, right? And if you go back to the last meeting when all the governors put their little dots on the chart in terms of where they thought things were going, I think it was 13 out of 17 thought we would raise by the end of the year. So there were 4 that didn't. Maybe that number is bigger now. You know, Janet Yellen is a consensus person. I think she's going to listen to her fellow FOMC members and try to build a consensus. And there may be some dissenters one way or another, but I don't think she'll be one of them. I think she will be part of a majority, and probably a substantial majority. But, you know, everybody assumes that Janet Yellen knows right now what she's going to do in December. December's a long way from now. We're going to get a lot more data. We're going to know a fair amount more. And then you deal with the facts that are in front of you, and you make a decision.
Yeah, and in fairness, actually, if you look at what Tarullo actually said, he was very careful in saying, based on the data as it is right now,
exactly.
But we've got a long way, just as you just said, long way between here and December, and things could develop. So he did not say no rate hike.
Exactly.